it's Kelly Hewitt back with you again for more of the chronological life of Jesus. Today, I want to talk to you about some more miracles, and I have a purpose for picking out these miracles. We're not covering every detail. I guess being the teacher, I get to pick which ones we look at. If you're reading the Gospels in full, you'll notice that Jesus does so much more than just what I touch on. But today I want to talk about the time that Jesus did certain miracles. He had that purpose, that intentional purpose for what he did. And I want to continue to look at that. Jesus came to confront all the things that the Jews had built up over the years in their expectation of a Messiah. We've talked in this class about the Jewish expectation was of a Messiah that was going to come, and he would be a powerful religious leader, a king that would come in and lead the Jews to be the brightest star nation on earth. This is what they were expecting. And then their Messiah is born in a manger, and he's run out of town, and he comes in, and for 30 years, he's the son of a carpenter. This is not the Messiah that they thought they were looking for. And then at the baptism of Jesus, what we have is like this launch into his ministry. And that's what we've been seeing all along. We've been seeing that he has a different purpose. So let's look at what he does. He's constantly confronting what the Jews, you read this, and this is what I say. You're looking at this, and this is what I say. So if you remember, we talked about the old law being a shadow. You know, you can see the shadow behind me. And if you just saw the shadow of my hand, you know when you see that shadow, that's a hand, right? But you don't understand it could be the hand of a black person with black skin. It could be the hand of a person with brown skin. Could be, right? You don't see the skin color. You don't see in that shadow. You don't see the ring on my finger. You don't see the strangeness of my fingers or my fingernails. All you see is the shadow. So the old law is the shadow, and Jesus came to say, look at the substance. This is what I have for you. And so there was lots of things that they assumed about that shadow that they had assumed wrongly. And Jesus comes to confront those assumptions and to say, I came for a different reason. Yes, I'm going to be your king. Yes, I'm going to liberate you. But it's not on earth. I came to be the king of your heart, and I came to liberate you from sin. It's a whole different idea than what they thought about. Let's look at how he confronts this with miracles. So let's go back to the book of John. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Those are our four Gospels. Now, they are sometimes parallel. They sometimes have the same story, and they sometimes have different stories, but they never contradict. Just to keep in mind. Let's go to John. Now, John, I love the book of John. He often has things that none of the other Gospels have because he had a different purpose for writing his book. Let's look at John 5, 1-47. I know that's a lot, so we're just going to kind of bop around in there because it's a lot of verses. We'll just kind of sort around in there so we don't have to read all of the verses in there. After these things, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. So if you're tracking the movements of Jesus, which you can through the Gospels from the chart that I sent in an email, you can track the movements of Jesus. You can watch where he goes to Capernaum and through Samaria and to Jerusalem and then back to Jerusalem. Pretty interesting. So he went up to Jerusalem, and now in Jerusalem there was a sheep gate at a pool, which was in Hebrew called Bethesda, having 5 porticos. In these lay a multitude of those who were sick, blind, lame, and withered, waiting for the moving of the waters. For an angel of the Lord went down at certain seasons into the pool and stirred the water. And whoever was then first, after the stirring up of the water, stepped in and was made well from whatever disease with which he was afflicted. So obviously there was some kind of a pool where God would provide healing. But it was only at some times, and it was only who could get in first. So I would imagine if you were deeply crippled, you could never get to the pool. The guy with just the withered hand could run up in front of you and get there first. Verse 5, and a certain man was there who had been 38 years in his sickness. So he's been sick a long time. Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been a long time in his condition. And he said to the man, do you wish to get well? The sick man said, Sir, I have no man to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another man comes down before me. Jesus said to him, Arise, take up your pallet and walk. And immediately the man became well. He took up his pallet and he began to walk. Now, it was the Sabbath on that day. That probably doesn't make any difference to you, whether it was the Sabbath day or Thursday, but to a Jew, it did. Now, to them, the Sabbath day was supposed to be a day of complete rest, a day where they did not labor, a day that their mind could be fully given over to thinking on God, to honoring God. Because God rested on the seventh day, they rested in honor of God. And they took it very, very seriously. So work was not done, and there was so many rules about the things you could do and the things you couldn't do. And there was Moses's rules on the Sabbath, and then they added a whole bunch more of what men decided you couldn't do on the Sabbath. You know, you could blow out your candle before bed, but you couldn't trim the wick or something like that. A lot of little details. And taking up your pallet, you know, holding your bed and carrying it, no, that would be breaking the Sabbath. So let's look at verse 10. Therefore, the Jews were saying to him who was cured, it is the Sabbath. It is not permissible for you to carry your pallet. But he answered them and said, he who made me well was the one who told me to take up my pallet and walk. So it's so funny. You know, here's a guy who's been 38 years paralyzed. Okay, I'm not a doctor, and I don't know a lot about paralysis, but I do know that if you don't move your legs, they atrophy. The muscles completely atrophy. And if you were to get the ability to walk back, it would take, years of physical therapy for you to learn to walk, for you to regain your strength, and it would be a difficult thing. And yet Jesus, in his complete healing, they don't need no therapy. They just burst out and walk. And they're not noticing this. They're like, oh yeah, you're healed. Oh, great for you, but you're holding your pallet and walking. It's just crazy. Let's see, verse 13. He who was healed didn't know who it was that had healed him, for Jesus had slipped away while there was a crowd in the place. And afterward, Jesus found the man who he had healed in the temple, and he said, behold, you've become well. Do not sin anymore, so that nothing worse may befall you. Little note here, what would be worse than being paralyzed? Being full of sin that cannot be forgiven. The man went away and told the Jews then that it was Jesus who had made him well. And for this reason, the Jews were persecuting Jesus because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. And he answered them, my Father is working until now, and I myself am working. Now, it goes on and on through verse 41 as Jesus defends his deity. But I really think that this miracle is interesting because he did it on the Sabbath day, and he did it in a way that would get the Jews' attention. He is saying, I am coming to say, the shadow, I'm coming to show you the substance. You were resting on that day, and I tell you, he's always going to be challenging that Jewish authority. So I want you to, in your study this week, just take a moment and read John 5:18 to 47. Just read all the way through there and you'll get kind of an indication that the things that Jesus answers and says to them, like in 19, he says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing of himself unless it is something he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, these things the Son does in a like manner." So God, they believed, was a healer. God could forgive sins, and he is saying the Son can do those things because the Father can. Continue to read through that scripture and notice how Jesus is confronting their beliefs. Now, he didn't came to say your beliefs were wrong. He came to set them on the right track and show them the substance. So that story, the healing at the synagogue, that can be found in Matthew chapter 12, 9 to 14, in Mark chapter 3, 1 to 6, and in Luke chapter 6, 6 to 11. Let's go over to Matthew, this next one. Matthew 12, let's look at that. Okay, 9 to 14. Here's another healing. So we have the Bethesda pool from John 5, 1 to 47. Then we're looking at another miracle. I think previously I had said that the Bethesda miracle was recorded in Matthew, but I said that wrong. We're going to look at the second miracle on the Sabbath day in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, which is a healing at the synagogue. So let's look at that. Jesus is establishing that he is Lord of the Sabbath day. The Sabbath day is for the Lord, and Jesus is the Lord. He establishes this, again, pushing against the things that they had believed from the old law. For Matthew 12, let's start in verse 9. For the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. So there's a verse you can underline. And departing from there, he went to their synagogue. So that was the place that they worshiped. And behold, there was a man with a withered hand. Now, I am always talking about the amazing miracles of Jesus and how they are obvious miracles. They aren't just, oh, my stomach was hurting and now it doesn't. We can't prove that. But this man had a withered hand. Most likely he'd been born that way, but perhaps it had been injured as a child and then not grown right. We don't know. But a withered hand doesn't look like a whole hand like mine. A withered hand is just, it's useless. It's just nothing. It might have been a little nub or something. They questioned Jesus, continuing on in verse 10. They questioned Jesus, "Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath?" And they said this in order that they might accuse him. And he said to them, "What man shall there be among you who has one sheep, and if it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, he will not take hold of it and lift it out? Of how much more value then is a man than a sheep? So then, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath?" Actually, it's not a question. I phrased it as a question. So then, it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. So see, he's pressing against what they believe. Doing good on the Sabbath is what God had in mind all along. Doing good, that it would be good for man. He said to the man then in verse 13, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out and it was restored to normal, just like the other one. Wow. From the leper to the man with the withered hand, I cannot imagine what that would have been like to witness. That Jesus said, "Be healed," and the man with the withered hand would be like, wow, look. Everyone would have been like, wow, because it would have been something that no human eye had ever seen before. The Pharisees went out and counseled together against him as to how they might destroy him. Jesus was aware of that and withdrew from there. Many followed him, and he healed them all. And in addition, he didn't pick a few out of the audience, say, yeah, I'm going to heal that guy, and that guy. He healed them all. Our Jesus healed everyone that came to him. So that is just a really beautiful account of Jesus beginning to kick the goads a little bit. He knows that it's going to make them mad, and so he's kind of trying to keep it quiet for a little while, but he's beginning to say, I am the Lord of the Sabbath. I am the Lord who I made the Sabbath for you, and doing good on the Sabbath is a good thing. So he's churning up what they believe. And really, when we read scripture, that's how it should be for us. You might have been told over and over and over and over and over your whole life something that wasn't quite right. And when we meet Jesus, when we encounter him and he begins to churn up those beliefs, that's the moment at which we can really change. When he begins to churn up what we thought was reality. That's what he's doing for the Pharisees and the Jewish nation. Churning up what you believed about God and looking at the real, true substance of who God really is. Because remember, he's the Word. He came to proclaim who God is. So finally, real quick before we're done, let's look at another one that shows the purpose of Jesus. So not only does he want to churn up the Jews and say, let's reevaluate what you were looking for, what you were waiting for, but he's also going to say, I came for a different purpose. Let's look at that let's just stay in Matthew. It's also recorded in Mark 3, 7-12, if you want to read those parallels. But let's just stay in Matthew chapter 12. It's just a little bit further on. What is the purpose of Jesus? Let's look at 12, verse 15. We're just continuing on. Jesus, we already read this verse, okay? Jesus was aware of this and withdrew from there, and many followed him, and he healed them all. And he warned them not to make him known, in order that what was spoken through Isaiah the prophet might be fulfilled. And so here's a direct quote from Isaiah. Behold, my servant who I have chosen, my beloved in whom my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he shall proclaim justice to the Gentiles. He will not quarrel nor cry out, nor will anyone hear his voice on the streets. A battered reed he will not break off, a smoldering wick he will not put out, until he leads justice to victory, and in his name the Gentiles will hope. So Jesus came. This is something, I don't know what a Jewish interpretation of this would have been, but Jesus is starting to say that I'm here for everyone. I'm here to become, like we learned in John, he became the light, and the light was available to all who believed in him to be called sons of God. This is the purpose of Jesus's ministry, to show the substance of God and to reveal that he and his forgiveness and his love was available to all peoples, not just to the Jewish nation anymore, but to everyone. If this turned up some questions for you, I would love to help you answer them. I don't always have the answers, but I'd love to try. So email me, comment on this video, anything you need to do to get a hold of me, and I will do my best to answer your questions. And I'll see you next time. Have a great week.